What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Time to do the Tao now and begin changing our thoughts and changing our lives by living the wisdom of the Tao. And reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao, and going through the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching and trying to discover its philosophy and its spiritual philosophy and wisdom that it has to give to us through Wayne Dyer and Lao-tzu, the author of the Tao Te Ching. And we'll give a little refresher for those of you who may be new and just joining. 500 years before the birth of Jesus, a God-realized being named Lao-tzu in ancient China dictated 81 verses, which are regarded by many as the ultimate commentary on the nature of our existence. The classic text of these verses, called the Tao Te Ching, or the Great Way, offers advice and guidance that is balanced, moral, spiritual, and always concerned with working for the good. So Dr. Wayne W. Dyer had reviewed and has reviewed hundreds of translations of the Tao Te Ching. And in this book, he's written 81 distinct essays on how to apply the ancient wisdom of Lao-tzu into today's modern world and our lives in the modern world. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the 72nd verse of the Tao Te Ching. And it's been a fun journey. It's been a long journey, and I hope you have been joining me along. If not, then be sure to go back and check out all the other life-changing, thought-changing, inspirational lessons and wisdom from the Tao Te Ching and from Wayne Dyer, and hopefully a little bit of my ramblings. But I'm going to try to keep my ramblings to a bit less than normal today, ladies and gentlemen. And let's dive into now the 72nd verse of the Tao Te Ching, in which Wayne Dyer titles "Living with Awe and Acceptance." So the 72nd verse of the Tao Te Ching begins by saying, when people lack a sense of awe, there will be disaster. When people do not fear worldly power, a great power will arrive. Do not limit the view of yourself. Do not despise the conditions of your birth. Do not resist the natural course of your life. In this way, you will never weary of this world. Therefore, the sage knows himself, but makes no show of himself, loves himself, but does not exalt himself. He prefers what is within to what is without. And that is the 72nd verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, it's very deep and powerful and makes you think, thought-provoking. This interesting, it's always a paradox, as we always say. When people do not fear worldly power, a great power will arrive, was the second or the third and the fourth line. And that makes me wonder what kind of power was being referred to there. And when people lack a sense of awe, there will be disaster. Wayne Dyer spoke about disaster as being a disassociation from the astral or from the spiritual or non-physical side of ourselves. And when we totally disassociate from that and have a lack of a sense of awe and wonder in seeing creation, for what it is, as it is, and being able then to appreciate that, this sense of awe and wonder that is being talked about here, and living with awe and acceptance, like Wayne Dyer titled his little essay about this 72nd verse of the Tao Te Ching. And going back to what I was saying, being a disaster through a disassociation from the astral or the spiritual. I always found that interesting because a lot of people have different understandings of what the astral realm or astral travel and what astral may really mean in different ways because it can be taken differently in different contexts. But I think when he was describing it, Dr. Wayne Dyer, this idea of disaster coming from a disassociation of the astral, I think he was describing disconnecting from your higher self or your spiritual, because that is also taken many different ways and can be debated and looked at from many different perspectives. But what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is trying to change our thoughts, and so that we can change our life. We're creating a new perspective that could be different for any one of us, which is just fine, that can hopefully use this wisdom and this philosophy from the Tao and from Lao-tzu so that we can increase the quality of our lives through an increased awareness or understanding of reality. So with that being said, do not limit the view of yourself. So to me, this is positive psychology. Don't despise the conditions of your birth. It's like have a positive perspective, changing your perspective. One of the simplest things that can really have a positive impact on any of our lives is through deep contemplation of perspective. And, I love the saying, all things considered, we're doing pretty good. And so, it's important to have a zoomed out perspective because sometimes when we're in our lives, we don't have a chance to stop and, detach ourselves from ourselves for a moment to gain a new perspective or a zoomed out viewpoint, so to speak. Do not limit the view of yourself. Do not resist the natural course of your life. That to me is one of the most powerful lines because it's talking about the philosophy or the idea of the old cliche of going with the flow. I like to put it more like, you know, not trying to swim upstream, but I'll keep from rambling on that, ladies and gentlemen, but that was one of my more favorite lines from there. Do not resist the natural course of your life. And that itself may even take some contemplation to come to know, well, what really is the natural course of my life or one's life. And so in this way, it says, if you can do these things, not limiting the view of yourself and not despising the conditions of your birth or, the circumstance that you happen to come into this world in that was out of your control. Do not resist this natural flow. If we can do these three things, then in this way, we will never weary of this world. We will never become weary. It didn't have the word become in there. I just said you will never weary of this world. But that is fascinating. And so therefore, the sage knows himself, and I'll add, or herself, but makes no show of him or herself. Loves him or herself, which is most important. We must come to love ourselves through knowing that we are a part of the divine. We are a part of God, the Tao, the source, the force, grand, organized, designed, or, there's so many names for it, and I always list them all off because I find that maybe somebody will need that rather than just hearing the Tao every time or God every time, or I like to call it the force. Some people call it universe, whatever it is for you. This thing that is many names but cannot be named. And because we're getting into this a little bit, we'll go all the way back, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen. That was funny. That one was living in the flow, the 8th verse of the Tao Te Ching. The supreme good is like water, but living creatively. And here we go, back to the first verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. And it says the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. So I would say that for God, whatever, version of that is for you, the God that can be told and explained is not the eternal force or God. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. So this is important when trying to put a label on this thing that has been described by many as God or Great Spirit or Tao. But, ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that once it can be described or told, it is not the real thing. And once it can be named, it is not also the right thing. So be careful when people get hung up on labels. I don't know why I felt that important to say, but this is understanding spiritual philosophy. And that is one of my favorite subjects, ladies and gentlemen. As you can tell, that's why we're here. And if you're getting value, consider subscribing and smashing the like button. Thank you so much for being here. The Tao is both named and nameless. So this force, this God, it is both things. At the same time, one thing. This is important philosophy to discover, which has to do with the paradoxical unity of duality and the paradoxical nature of this spiritual philosophy and trying to describe God. So anyways, as nameless, it is the origin of all things, and as named, it is the mother of 10,000 things. Now, I'd be interested to see the original translations, but I think what Lao-tzu meant there by 10,000 things is everything in the physical world that we have put labels and titles on as being separate and not just all part of the one thing that it is all a part of anyways. Just as a thought within your mind, that's a different subject. We'll leave that for tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. But going back here to finishing up the 72nd verse of the Tao Te Ching and going into Living with Awe and Acceptance by Dr. Wayne Dyer, prefers what is within to what is without. So those two lines were my favorite. Do not resist the natural course of your life and prefer what is within to what is without. Now, living with awe and acceptance. Dr. Wayne Dyer begins by saying, this verse of the Tao Te Ching alerts you to two components that work together for a harmonious life, a sense of awe and total acceptance. Without these combined forces, you're unlikely to see the presence of the Tao. As I wrote about this verse, he says, I found myself reading from St. John of the Cross, a 16th century mystical poet who lived a life of awe. I've reproduced a few of his lines to give you an idea of how this feeling manifested in a divinely spiritual man. Quote, my beloved is the mountains and lonely wooded valleys, strange islands and resounding rivers, the whistling of love-stirring breezes, the tranquil night at the time of rising dawn, silent music, sounding solitude, the supper that refreshes and deepens love. Wayne continues saying, this morning I sit here in my sacred space on Maui, feeling an urgency that actually feels like the rapture in St. John of the Cross's words. I sense the presence of Lao-tzu urging me to hurry up so that he may convey to you what he means by having a sense of awe. It is so profound to usher into your life a timeless awareness of the arrival of a greater power. And that's a real key point there, becoming to a new awareness. I was listening to Wayne a few days ago, and he was talking about this idea of, a lot of us live with a limited, we have been taught just, through society by our parents and our teachers and, religious institutions, or whatever it be. And, we're not putting any of that down. That's not the purpose, because it is what it is. And if we can see it for what it is, then, we can hopefully make improvements in the future. But this perspective that, I would say most of society has, that we live from a limited reality. What we experience with our waking consciousness and what we experience in day-to-day life is all there is. And a lot of people are not very open to usher into their lives a new awareness, new possibilities, and being open to a kind of reality or kind of life that they never thought was possible in the first place. It never was taught or told that it was possible, and maybe even told it was impossible. And so maybe that's why we're doing this here today. Usher into your life a timeless awareness of the arrival of a greater power. Wayne continues, I feel that power right now in my beautiful surroundings. It's funny you say that. There was a bird sitting out here on the edge of the balcony there, or the rail line, and he was basking in the sun, and I wasn't sure if he was trying to get a different angle to look through the glass here, but man, he was taking it in. And so take it in, ladies and gentlemen. That's the lesson here. And this also was a lesson from the Hermetic teachings that come from the ancient Egyptian spiritual philosophy, which was being able to see creation for what it is, and then being able to have this sense of awe and appreciation and gratitude. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne says, I feel that power right now in my beautiful surroundings. The sound of minnow birds fill the air as the ocean rolls in undulating waves, much like the heartbeat of our planet. I've always liked that metaphor, the waves being like the heartbeat of the planet, or the tide changes. But there's many different metaphors you could take that one with, so far as the heartbeat of the planet. But it's a fascinating thing to think about, seeing the planet as a living being itself. And I would almost argue that more people possibly believe that than what used to be the opposite. Now, let me know what you think about that in the comments below. It's fascinating to get different opinions on that philosophy. But Wayne continues, the colors are absolutely breathtaking. The bright blue sky, the shimmering green palm trees, seagrass and ficus plants, the dreamy oranges and purples mixing in the distant clouds. And topping it all off, a rainbow that appears to be connecting the nearby island of Lanai with my front window. Well, quite a description there, Dr. Dyer. He continues, when words appear on my blank sheets of paper, I'm awash with the bewildering waves of pleasure at how I'm being used by an invisible force. He used the word source. I know that I'll soon be in the ocean, propelling myself along the shoreline, looking down at creatures playfully moving about in the salty water and wondering where they sleep. How do they get there? How can they breathe without air? Do they ever stop moving? Will they be here after I'm gone? And then I'll emerge from the ocean and walk along the sand, feeling the sun on my body. Now, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, if you know Wayne Dyer's story, it wasn't always this nice. The beginning of his story is and this is what's fascinating about life, The beginning of his story is what led him to be where he was, teaching self-reliance and later self-actualization and, positive and spiritual philosophy and psychology. And eventually talking about manifesting and being able to change your thoughts, change your focus, and literally create a new life for yourself through a whole lot of work and diligence. You don't just go, yeah. I mean, unless maybe you were ready from many past lives, but that's a different subject. I always thought there's a funny one. Someone asked, I think it was anyways, somebody asked a popular figure, what is your stance on reincarnation? She said, well, I don't think it would be any more strange for me to show up in this life than it would for me to show up in a different one. It's an interesting way to look at it. But, ladies and gentlemen, feeling the sun. We're talking about awe here, and he's, I think, describing a picture of how you can get in to this sense of awe. And so it's all of these questions. Will they be here after I'm gone? And then it's like questioning how the sun stays up there and how we keep moving around it while spinning once every 24 hours. And see, these things can be questioned. You're not just crazy if you wonder what really is going on here, why the ocean doesn't tip upside down, and why the whole thing is turning over and over, and if the stars and the universe itself will ever have an end, or is it ever changing but ever changeless, as the paradoxes have taught us. The reason we're asking all of these questions and saying these things that you might be going, where in the heck is this going, Chase? Is because it's crucial to have a sense of awe. And asking these kind of answerless questions give you a childlike sense of wonder and awe and appreciation for the things that we take for granted. Because we've been, taught our whole lives that this is just the way it is, and there isn't anything amazing to it. And hopefully we haven't all been taught that. But ladies and gentlemen, you know where I'm going with this. So it's crucial to have this sense of awe and wonder because it helps loosen our ego's hold. The ego's hold helps loosen the ego from our mind, its hold on our thinking. And you can then know that there's something great and enduring that does. And it is animating all of reality. And that's an ultimate awareness. I'm surprised you went that direction with that sentence. But the reason it's crucial to have this sense of awe and wonder and acceptance is because it helps loosen our controlling, wanting to know everything and win and, have it all figured out, ego mind. It loosens that hold on our thinking, and it begins to allow us to then come to know, rather than believe and wonder about, come to know that there's something great, indescribable, like we were talking about earlier, the nameless, that is the very animating force or intelligence of all of existence. I'm sorry I went slow with that sentence, but it's just like when I'm saying these things and reading these things, I'm really pondering it. And so hopefully you're doing so with me here, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for being here if you are here. I appreciate you so much. Shout out to A1 and Gorilla Press. and all the other wonderful supporters. We've been getting some great support lately, and I really appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. And so let's get ourselves towards the end of this wonderful lesson. It's a different vibe, I think, than normal, but back in the beginning of this series, I was just sitting on the couch, kind of like, all right, if you want to join me in my morning read, then you're more than welcome to, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll probably get something out of it, because not all of us take the time to do this for ourselves, even though we might like to. And for some of us, we learn by listening. And for some of us, we learn by reading. And for some of us, we learn by doing. And, we can do a little bit of all of that here. If you want to get this for yourself, to put it on your shelf, like I have behind me there, you can expand the description below the video and you'll find a link to the book on Amazon, and it is an affiliate link. And so you can also support me by getting that, because it might actually get my affiliate account approved after 5 years of trying to do that. You have to get a certain amount of, that's a different subject, ladies and gentlemen. And so, continuing with this idea of awe and wonder, which we should keep in mind, because it's a good way for us to come to know God, or know the Tao, and begin to experience a higher quality of life. Being in awe of something staves off disasters, because you have no fear of worldly conditions, Wayne continues. You're kept grounded in the otherworldly power that manifests 1,000,000,000,000 miracles a second, all of which are oblivious to our ego. Because the ego, I'll add, is trying to keep us focused on the other things than the wonder and the awe and the beauty of nature and the nature of reality. The 72nd verse, Wayne continues, of the Tao Te Ching also asks you to accept yourself and your individual concerns, with 3 very emphatic suggestions, which I thought were quite powerful. Lao-tzu tells you to avoid self-limits, self-limitations, self-limiting beliefs and thoughts. I added those last 3 things. Wayne continues, accept your body as a perfect creation and allow your life to unfold in accordance with its own nature. I love the metaphor of nature, Wayne says, as a guide to sage-like acceptance. In fact, through the 81 verses, Lao-tzu emphasizes being in harmony with the natural world. And he talked about it so much, I'll add, I actually was beginning to feel like the meaning of the Tao, was harmony, the harmony of nature that we see in nature, which is confusing to some, because some might look in nature and see disaster and chaos. But there is a way that it works according to natural law, that there is some kind of unique balance and harmony when things are left to natural cycles. We've been going through the Hermetics on Wednesdays, or the Hermetica, and the teachings of Hermes and Thoth. And it's very fascinating how these universal laws and natural laws dealing with the, functioning of reality, it comes up very often. And it's interesting how the Tao and the descriptions of these, the spiritual philosophy relates to this metaphor of harmony and the natural world. So Wayne continues, telling us, Lao-tzu was telling us, emphasizing this harmony with the natural world, is that's where we connect most to this force, or to God, or to the Tao. As Meister Eckhart, a 13th century Catholic monk and scholar, put it, quote, God created all things in such a way that they are not outside of himself, as ignorant people falsely imagine. Rather, all creatures flow outward, but nonetheless remain within God. See, this guy surprises me, being a Catholic monk. See, back in the day, ladies and gentlemen, it becomes apparent that some folks were a lot more mystical and less dogmatic than we may be led to believe, but I don't know. That's highly debatable. I just like to think, I'm really optimistic. I like to think things were a lot better than we ever thought they were, and they're getting better than people think they are, faster than we can possibly imagine, even the most optimistic of us. Well, I give Jeff a little credit because it takes, you know, takes constantly pounding positivity into yourself. It's a practice, ladies and gentlemen. This is why they say practice gratitude or practice, optimism. It's something that you literally have to work on over time in order to have a new perspective, and then you eventually experience a new experience because what you're looking for is totally different, and so what you find and see is totally different. It's the overall understanding of changing our thoughts and in turn changing our lives, changing the way that we look at things, and then the things that we see change. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Meister Eckhart impressed me there because he's talking about this force rather than a separate God entity up here, like I would think that the Catholic Church taught. I don't know. See, theology is very interesting. I just like to stay under the term of spiritual philosophy, and we can include all spiritual traditions across the planet and try to break it down and find the similarities of this thing that is being described throughout all of them, this wisdom. But it seems that this understanding that God and all the things that were created by this force, or, that we are a part of, all these things are not outside of God, even though people like to imagine that. Rather, all creatures flow outward, but nonetheless remain within the force, or God. And in John 15:4 through 5, Wayne continues, the Bible advises you to, quote, stay joined to me, and I will stay joined to you. I'd love to see the interlinear on that. Just as a branch cannot produce fruit unless it stays joined to the vine. Good little philosophy. You cannot produce fruit unless you stay joined to me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Learn about the Tao, Wayne continues, by being in perfect harmony with the environment. Think of trees, which endure rain, snow, cold, and wind, and when the harsh times arrive, they wait with the forbearance of being true to their inner selves. Wow, Wayne. That was a good one. I liked that a little bit there. Think of trees which endure rain, snow, cold, and wind. And when harsh times arrive, they wait with the forbearance of being true to their inner selves. Powerful, ladies and gentlemen. As Deng Ming Dao writes in 365 Tao Daily Meditations, quote, they stand and they wait, the power of their growth apparently dormant. But inside, a burgeoning that is building imperceptibly. Neither bad fortune nor good fortune will alter what they are. We should be the same way. That'll make you look at trees a little bit differently. Boom, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, we're not done yet, and I appreciate you being here if you're still joining me. This is for the few, and if you are here, give yourself a pat on the back, because we are the few, ladies and gentlemen. The next generation. Love yourself. Make no show of yourself, and quietly remain in awe and acceptance. Here are some suggestions, Wayne says, on how to make this our reality. Number one, see the miraculous in everything. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what I'm going to title this video. Living with awe and wonder. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that once we're done. It is almost 11 where I am here. And so we'll see when we're watching in the premiere, ladies and gentlemen. So see the miraculous in everything. Change your view of the world to one of awe and bewilderment. Rather than looking for miracles, shift to seeing everything as a miracle. That's miraculous. By being in a state of awe, you won't be able to mentally experience boredom or disappointment. Try to see the invisible force, God, Tao, flowing through and supporting everyone and everything. Everything. Even inanimate, that we call inanimate objects. Try seeing the invisible Tao flowing through and supporting everyone and everything. A rainstorm becomes a miraculous event. The lightning, a fascinating display of electrical fireworks. The thunder, a booming reminder of the invisible power of nature. Live the mystery by beginning to perceive what average eyes fail to notice. The eyes and the ears, ladies and gentlemen, to see and to hear. Number 2, focus on loving the life you have now in the body that you've got. Tell yourself that you love everything about this physical shell that you've incarnated into, no matter how far along in the journey you are. Affirm to yourself, my body is perfect, born at precisely the right time, and this is the perfect age now. I accept myself as I am. I accept my role in the perfection of the universe at this time. I surrender to the natural course of my body's destiny. See the body through the eyes of totally accepting thoughts, and as Lao-tzu says, in this way, you will never weary of this world. Because you will know, I'll add, that you are not just this body. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience, but rather the other way around. You are a spiritual being. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when you know that, then you know that you are much greater than the condition of your body. You know, like when you start to experience change, you go, what is this going on? How did this get here? But we are not that, ladies and gentlemen. We are much more than just our bodies. So we need to begin to do the Tao now, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you should get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf. It's because at the end of every one of these wonderful essays and sections, you can see there the last little bit is a little paragraph on how Wayne Dyer believes we can practically put this wisdom into action into our lives today. Do the Tao now. List 5 natural occurrences in your daily life that you've been taking for granted. And then spend some contemplative time allowing each into your consciousness, into your mind, into your thoughts. The sky, some flowers, a tree in your yard, the moon, the sun, the fog, the grass, a spiderweb, a crab hole, a lake, a shrub, maybe even a cricket, or your dog. Anything that occurs naturally. Let yourself radically appreciate the miracle you hadn't been noticing. And then write, draw, or photograph some observations that you've gleaned from this new perspective of awe and bewilderment. The new perspective of awe and bewilderment. Boom, ladies and gentlemen. That is a boom to knowledge. That is a boom to wisdom. That is a boom to spiritual philosophy and changing our thoughts and hopefully changing our lives and creating a higher quality of lives for not only ourselves and for those around us, but those who will come after us in the future through having a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of reality, ladies and gentlemen. These are always fantastic. Yesterday, I was like, maybe I'll take a break. And then I was like, no, I'm actually excited to see where we go and where Wayne Dyer will take us. And I always enjoy these. And so hopefully you do as well, ladies and gentlemen. And if you get value, consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, then leave me a comment and say what's up. I don't always know who's watching, and it's good to see who is and be able to, respond back and say thank you so much and other things. And also be sure to smash the like button. That helps the algorithm get these to more people of like mind, ladies and gentlemen, so that hopefully we can help a few more people begin to increase the quality of their lives. Next week on Tuesday Tao, we'll be looking at what Wayne Dyer describes the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching as living in heaven's net. Wonder what that means, ladies and gentlemen. Wonder what that means. And then tomorrow, we will be doing some more of the lost wisdom of the pharaohs on Wednesday Wisdom and the Hermetica. So that should be fun as well, ladies and gentlemen. Looking forward to that. So remember, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages. Seek to discover the mysteries of our history. And begin to make happiness the way. There is no way to happiness. It is the way. So all the things that we've been telling ourselves, I'll be happy when I get there, those become irrelevant because hopefully we already are there. And then the entire journey is wonderful. I don't know if I did the first part of that right. Seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages. Yeah. I don't know. I always do that a little bit. There was a long time where I had it perfectly down. I would do it the same every time at the end. Nowadays, I kind of get a little wobbly and start adding things in here and there because we're looking into the mysteries of history and the wisdom of the ages, but the nature of reality and all the greatest questions, that we'll probably never have all the answers to, but it's my favorite thing to ask the questions that we'll never get all the answers to, ladies and gentlemen. But like Hermes or Thoth said, pure philosophy through constant contemplation. What did he say? Let's get it right. I was thinking about it the other day because we say it all the time, and it's like my favorite history. Here we go. Pure philosophy is spiritual striving through constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of what he described as Atum, the one God. But anyways, we'll leave that there for tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get there. So thank you so much for being here. I love and appreciate all of you. Be sure to expand the description below and check everything out down there. A link to the book as well as C60 Purple Power. Get yourself the gift of health, the ultimate antioxidant known to man. And also check out my landscape paintings. All right, thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Be the change you want to see. Be the example. No, 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 no.